Okay, up next we have the intersection of blockchain technology and social impact. So coming up on stage, we have Mo, Gail, Genevieve, and Antonia.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Genevieve Leveille, and I am the CEO and founder of AgriLedger. And I'm really happy to have us all here together so we can talk about really the social aspect of Web3 and the intersection. So would love to have my co-panelists be able to introduce themselves. Antonia, when we start with you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Antonia, and I work at Save the Children. I lead Web3 operations, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail.
Hi, my name is Gail, Gallie. I founded the SDG campaign unit, Project Everyone, with the filmmaker Richard Curtis, talking about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
And my name is my mic on?
No. The mic's not on.
The mic is not on. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Gail. My name is Ghoneim. I'm the founder of Arts Help. We are a digital art publisher. We primarily do two things, publishing and programming. And we look at ways that we can mobilize the creator community to do good. And we are in line with the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals as our framework. So everything that we do is surrounded around the SDGs.
So a little bit more about me. So I created a company called AgriLedger, and what we did was, I like to say my claim to fame was putting mangoes on the blockchain. We don't think of that as NFT, but it is non-fungible data that allows a farmer to have his good go from the middle of nowhere in in Haiti to the US and get paid. And we were able to move them from 2 cents to about $1.86, so 2%, sorry, to about 700% of the payment. And it's important to understand how do we actually use blockchain technology, NFTs in the social aspect. And this is why I'm so happy to have with me at the table. So I like to say I'm not a non-for-profit, I'm a profit with purpose. But my biggest challenge is how do I create awareness to actually support those individuals? And I think that's something that we can really see in the work that is being done by Save the Children, Project Everyone, and also Arts Help. So you guys, who wants to?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So Save the Children has been around 100 years as a humanitarian organization focused on supporting kids around the world. We're in 118 countries, so you could definitely say we're a sort of legacy humanitarian presence. We were the first INGO to accept crypto, in this case Bitcoin, in 2013, which we put to good use for a response of a typhoon that hit the Philippines. Fast forward, and the way we look at Web3 might be helpful to outline. We have crypto philanthropy, so to date we've developed a crypto campaign. We've raised over $8 million in USD value of crypto, which we put to our emergency responses around the world. That could be Ukraine, Afghanistan, more recently the hurricane that hit Florida. So we're seeing a really engaged community in this space, a very generous community as well. Obviously also working with big brands and NFTs. I think there's a really exciting use case to Genevieve's point about NFTs in the future of how we apply blockchain technology to improve the way we work as an organization and with other organizations. But also, what does NFT as digital property rights mean on a humanitarian level? And that's a really exciting space. So yeah, that's kind of the way we work at Save the Children when it comes to Web3.
I daren't even come in because we don't work at all in this. So I'm more here to learn. It's weird that I'm on the panel as opposed to in an audience, but I definitely know that the creativity and the opportunity that Web3 blockchain NFT represents is something that the world needs. And the world needs it to be broader than and more understood and more profitable for the majority than the contents of this building. So the goals that I work with, which you do, of course, at SAVE as well, that the Sustainable Development Goals are all the old problems, hunger, poverty, bias, discrimination, etc., and all the new ones, which broadly comes under climate change and everything that sits under that. the old ones didn't get solved, the new ones are not going away. So we need every ounce of creativity, technology, and passion, and drive, and enthusiasm, and fun, and creativity to solve them. So I am desperate for this whole world to connect into the world that I sort of represent and that this wheel represents, because there's a gulf, right? I think about it as the other room, like, which is a bit of a negative start point. It's a friend of mine her husband was diagnosed with something nasty. They used to call it going into the other room when they talk about, would you get through it or not? And at the moment, I feel like there's the other room, which is this whole world. And if you're in it for a while, it's a great room. It's like, wow, this is exciting, and we're going to solve this and that, and look at what just happened, incredible. And then you step out of that room, and you've got the rest of the world who think you're mad. And like a lot of this world, especially centered at the United Nations Central Office in New York, they're like, whoa, we're not going into that room. And I think it's because they're not seeing enough evidence coming out of the other room to make them think this is really exciting and really worth engaging with. So I would love to blow open the doors so that the rooms can flow.
You are blowing, aren't you?
I don't know if I
was going to say, can you tease your project that you're working on in the Web3? You got a high-profile project, Creatures.
I can, and it's a fun, well, I can certainly tease it. So these are 17 goals. I wouldn't expect anybody to know what each color segment is.
How many people know the 17 Sustainable Development Goals? We've got...
I'm not going to test you, don't panic. But one of them on here represents life on land, and it's the nature goal, which is, you may have heard rumblings of, there's going to be a big conference in December in Montreal, which happens once every 10 years to look at the world's impact on nature. And it doesn't get talked about. 10 years is not frequent enough. And also there's a gulf in understanding between how we live and what we're doing to the natural world. And in fact, we are the natural world. So if it goes down, we go down. So we are trying to find a disruptive, creative, fast-moving way of getting people back on board, which is exactly what this world can do: disrupt, create, and be crazy attention-seeking. So that's called Creatures United, and the whole point of it is, like, humans need to be a part. We see ourselves as apart from nature, but we are a part of nature. So Creatures United is going to be an exceptionally modern, digitally led, very noisy campaign that I hope will be like the Muppets, just to go back into my old room. It's going to be like the Muppets on a mission to take the natural world back into our hearts. And I'm working, thank you for the prompt, with Mo on that. Why don't you talk about your organization and this room?
So we started getting into this space because we have a huge community of 20 million people that follow us across 225 media channels online. And when the craze started happening around NFTs, almost every single blockchain that you could think of, in some capacity, wanted to have a conversation to look at how can they mobilize our community. And we started doing a little bit of research before we got, as we were having these conversations, and we learned about the sustainable side and environmental impacts. So we essentially started with education. We found that we needed a lot of education as an organization that has an audience that counts on us for resources and information. And we created mini masterclasses, and we launched a program called Conscious Crypto Creator. It's a free program where it offers mini masterclasses that are digestible, everything from blockchain and crypto 101 to the environmental impacts, the legal side of things. And again, we make it so it's accessible, it's digestible. And then parallel to that, we launched a grant of $3.5 million to invite artists, creators, developers to really tackle climate change in the Web3 space. So we've had applications from 110 countries so far, thousands of artists from various different communities. And when we say artists, we really consider both traditional and non-traditional art practices. And Creatures is actually one of our projects that we're excited to announce for 2023 as one of our curated projects for this grant. So I've had a little bit of preview into the project, and we're very excited about it. So thank you for sharing. Genevieve, I think you need to share what you are working on.
I have to say this year has been an interesting year, because we are becoming more and more aware of climate issues. And what I've been working on with I spoke about how we get the farmer to market. But the problem is, we all know we're in this space. It's expensive. How do you build a blockchain, which is not a bridge that is going to dissipate? We saw, I can't remember in the name of the company in the Philippines. It lost millions for these people. And that's something I don't want on my conscience. So in order to do that, though, how do you pay for it? So we've been working on this concept of there is something else that I can help farmers in harvesting, carbon credits. The problem is harvesting it properly. So that's what we did. We helped them follow the mangoes, make sure the mangoes are treated the right way, and prove that. So what we're going to do is help them harvest those carbon credits, provide them with the financials to get seeds, so we're seeding them. They are the first innovators and entrepreneurs as far as I'm concerned, and then get them to support at least getting the carbon to market, and then their goods belong to them, and which in this way we can bring what we say is a part of Web3, equity. It also allows them to be educated about the technology. And so we are also all working together on how to bring that knowledge and how to educate more people. Because my point of view is, if I knew nothing about this space and I was to look for a job and it said Web3, NFT, blockchain, and I don't know those words, and I go online and I get all these scary things, I won't participate. But if we're talking about $13 trillion, how do we get people on board for that? And this is why it's important for all of us to work together. So really, the social impact is how can we bring those ideas of climate? How do we bring climate equity? Because when we talk, COP26, COP27 is going to be about how is the greater north really dissipating on the carbon credit and the greater south is not getting money. Now, if we can create through blockchain technology the mechanism to prove that things have happened, that's one thing. But the next thing is we all need people to be able to work with us. So how do we educate them and how do we bring them onto that journey with us is very key.
Can you share your case study numbers? I thought that was exciting.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So actually, in Haiti, I mentioned, we were able to do in the coffee, cocoa, and also mango. They went 750% increase, and that was about 5,000 farmers. We're now working with farmers in Tanzania, and there's going to be 26,000 farmers. And once we do the carbon, we actually have 300,000 farmers in Africa, which are earmarked, and we will help them harvest the first year 1 million tons of carbon credit.
That's incredible. When we talk about social impact, I think you're already doing that.
Thank you.
You're definitely inspirational on that front, and I think if you take that, which is an amazing scale, but you scale it even further within humanitarian work, I think there's so much further we can go when you apply blockchain. The accountability, that word really comes to mind, the transparency, the efficiency, and the impact then of where your money goes is an amazing use case when it comes to big organizations like Save the Children. And we're looking to see how we can apply that technology, and we're actively doing that now with other organizations we work with. So, in places I've been to, like in Bangladesh, the Rohingya refugee camp, one of the biggest in the world, there are many big organizations working there, often with the same families. And how can you essentially improve that, the database you already have, but make it really accountable and transparent? Blockchain enables us to do that. So I think that's really, really key, engaging that community.
Do you think that we were chatting earlier, weren't we? Do you think you can even get to that stage without some very, very basic educational building blocks about financial literacy, full stop?
I don't know that you really need to, because do you really know how your email gets to you? You need to know the email is getting to you. You need to understand the address. You need to understand how you impart that information. So when we did it in Haiti, the farmers didn't know anything about blockchain. What I said is we're going to use this technology, which is new. It's going to say what you bought, it's going to tell you when it's sold, and it's going to tell you how much money comes to you. And those were the basics. So at the end, we all need communication and trust in the process. and that takes time. So this is why your organizations are so important, because you've already built the trust. So it's important that education is also imparted to you guys so that you understand. And when we talk about NFT, right now we're seeing it as pictures and JPEG. I remember Napster. When I saw Napster, I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I get that music down to my PC? Nowadays, we have Netflix and all that streaming happening. So that's the next step.
I would just add to that, though, that I do think there's a big education space here, both in terms of you've built the trust as an organization, like in Yemen where I was as well. We've been there, for decades. You've built that trust, but you need to maintain that trust. And I think that's where you don't just have trust and then that's it. And I think it would be really dangerous if, humanitarian organizations just thought that was it. You need to build on that and improve that and ensure you don't make mistakes and take people's information. You're dealing with people's personal information and they're at their most vulnerable. So it's really, really important that we tap into things like, zero knowledge proofs and how you maintain people's identity so that they are safeguarding their identity through you. You're an enabler, not a holder. That's really, really important in this space, especially as an organization the size of ours. So yeah, and I think the other point is education is key. There are a lot of organizations that are working in enabling peer-to-peer payment systems. And that is about an education system of knowing that you can opt out of an existing system in a country. There was a stat that came up, and I think I mentioned this to you. 13% of the world live in a liberal democracy where they have a reserve currency. Basically, their currency is deemed to have value globally. And property rights, which is, I think, where NFTs come in, at least in my context, exist. So that's only 13% of the world. Everyone else, there is a huge use case for NFTs to prove that they own their house, their land, to prove that their ancestors were here as well. There's that aspect, and I think that knowledge, and you only know you have access to that if you're educated around that being an option. So I think the education part, when it comes to Web3 in the space, and I say Web3 very broadly here, but with aspects like property rights, really,
I think
really
Genevieve's point there was the one about bridge builders, like we need to build some bridges, and that's why I think your work is so interesting, and hopefully the Creatures campaign will be an example of it. We need bridge building so that people realize it's an option and why it's a good thing, but we also, I think, and Mo, I'd like you to answer as well about this, but the creativity, so we turned a policy document at the UN into a pretty picture and some icons, and that sounds shallow, but it's actually completely transformative, because otherwise that policy document would have gone nowhere, or would have gone nowhere very fast. And the problem that a lot of this world has, as somebody who largely lives in the other room, is that one little misstep or one little news report and everyone goes, whoa, yeah, I knew that was full of criminals. And so environmentally speaking, the WWF has been burnt by it, Conservation International have been burnt by it. They've all tried to do experiments that have failed, and now everyone in the environmental world is terrified. So we need the bridge builders. The bridge builders need to have visuals, but as soon as it gets kind of out there in an imperfect form or it's misunderstood, the bridge seems to fall down. So I don't know, the role of the arts, which is what you're completely in, to do the alchemy that goes, I can build a bridge, I can get you over the bridge, and the bridge is going to sort of take hold, as it will, on both sides, in both rooms, is I think what is so important about the work you do. But do you find that a challenge? You've got to give it visibility, but too much visibility can break the bridge.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because we do get a lot of requests for some of the very complicated challenges, and they come to artists. And I think it's really interesting because that visual element that you speak of really can help transcend and translate some really complex topics. I was just sharing with the team here, the United Nations climate change entity, UNFCCC, they have 30 years of commitments from around the world from 190 countries. And all of these commitments and research has been stored on paper at their headquarters in Germany. And now some of these countries have lost track of their research and documentation over the last 3 decades. So they actually came to Arts Help, and this was a couple months back in Germany, and said, we have a really big problem. The ink is drying out on the paper, and we need to figure out a way to digitalize and also use art to bring this information and make it accessible. So to build out an archive of everything. So it's like looking at how art can really play a role and can be a part of that solution. It differs in various different situations, but we definitely are, really big advocates in, being a part of the conversation, using the creator economy for these discussions to make it so it is accessible, it is available to the public and digestible, especially the industry that we're in right now. It's a very complicated, there's a lot of buzzwords. I'm constantly looking at ways to educate myself, my team is, and there's, for us, using art as a vehicle for that has played a big role into educating. We've had thousands of people sign up for our programs just because, and you'd be surprised, these are not just like artists signing up to learn about crypto, blockchain. These are like professionals from government, from various different corporations that are trying to be at the pulse of what is happening, and we're looking at ways of visualizing it. We're looking at ways of translating it in a digestible form, and yeah, it's the artists that are on the forefront that are helping us do this.
Thank you so much. We are at the last minute, and we really look forward to, this is a continuing conversation. A lot of the work that we are all doing, we're just at the start of, and we would love for you to follow it. And also, a part of what really, when I look at the Sustainable Development Goal, I always say number 17 is my favorite, because this is about collaboration. And that's what also blockchain is all about. It's about how we bring in various parties to create back to number one and fix all those issues, but in a way that we can demonstrate. So this is really, we're at the start of this journey, and we look forward to having you guys be there with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you very much.